Navigating Magic podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, ethereal consciousness, and everything in between. I teach beings how to generate change through their attention to energies, truths, and processes that are invisible to others. I'm your host, Natasha Andreo. Methods that you can try. However, each and every manifestation principle keeps coming back to the Kybalion. What is the Kybalion? Now, this is a book that I picked up, I'm going to say 4 years ago, and I have read it maybe 7 times. It's not an easy read. However, each time I read it, I am opened up to a whole new awareness, and it is my intention that I interpret some of the teachings inside the Kybalion. And then in part 2 of this episode, I will give you some practical applications. Now, the precepts of Hermetic philosophy remained shrouded in secrecy for over 2,000 years, and they were clouded by obscure language and very dense allegories. The concise guide offers a modern interpretation of the doctrine, distilling its teachings with 7 compelling principles that can be applied to our self-development in our daily life. So as it turns out, Hermeticism, ancient principles for self-mastery, can be used by anyone who is looking to further their personal growth. So if this is you, you are definitely in the right place. The Kybalion is a brief introduction to the arcane world of Hermeticism, a mix of religious, philosophical, and magical beliefs of humanity's spiritual quest to its true divine nature. These same doctrines are based on principles originally explained by Hermes Trismegistus. The Kybalion provided a master key for students to unlock the fundamental and basic teachings of esoteric philosophy. There are 7 Hermetic principles that the entire philosophy is based on, and together these 7 principles constitute an explanation of the basic laws that apply to all of creation. So everything keeps coming back to these 7 principles. That's how important they are. The work is actually attributed to the 3 initiates. And when we dig deeper, because how can an author be titled the 3 initiates? We actually discover that the Hermetic content was most likely passed down from the late yogi Baba Bharata to William Walker Atkinson. Now, Atkinson is a prolific New Thought writer in the 20th century. And the fact that he had to write this interpretation of the Kybalion under the name The 3 Initiates just tells us how secretive some of these principles are, and they have been kept from us for a while. Now, comparative religion can see the doctrines of Hermetic philosophy in every major faith, regardless of what that faith's origin is. So, who was Hermes? He was one of the greatest sages who ever lived, and is the source of the tenets of the Kybalion. Jewish tradition claims that Trismegistus was also a contemporary of the patriarch Abraham. You might know him from the Bible. As a result, his teachings on Hermeticism and Hermetic law date back to over 5,000 years ago. Even while he was alive, his wisdom reached across continents. Now, there are records of the earliest Egyptians naming him the scribe of the gods. He was deified by the Greeks as the god of wisdom, and the ancient Romans named him Mercury, the god of the translators and interpreters. Now, in astrology, Mercury actually rules communication, so I see his name is very fitting. Hermes also discovered alchemy, which later developed into chemistry as we know it today. He created the concept of astrology, which became astronomy. Now, for his wisdom, he is known as the master of masters. Now, the lessons contained in the book have always been maintained with strict secrecy. Even today, the word Hermetic refers to sealed and protected. This concealment has been intentional. Hermes and his followers worried that if they made their teachings open, then their followers would be persecuted. I mean, history shows us this fear was well grounded. Throughout history, religious groups have suffered persecution from ostracism to burning at the stake. I mean, think about it. Never, ever in our history have we been allowed to openly speak about spirit and source and everything in between without being persecuted? So there is a lot of karmic wounding that we are dealing with, and some of these topics are considered taboos in some families and some cultures. But we are at the pinnacle right now in our society, and we are breaking free from that, and it feels so liberating. So the principles of Hermetic philosophy have always been occult, but the word doesn't have anything to do with black magic or religion. Instead, in this sense, occult simply means kept secret. The book is a handbook for navigating both the spiritual and the physical planes. It's a practical guide to the laws of the universe, increasingly backed by modern science. And it's funny because only in the last 10, maybe 20 years has science been able to catch up with some of these ancient philosophies. Now, the Kybalion is not compatible with any religion because it is not religious by any means. Some people consider it a magic key, and you can call it that if you want, but the emphasis is on key, not on magic. Now, who were the three initiates? Now, as I said before, it has been attributed to William Walter Atkinson, and he wrote the book under the pseudonym The Three Initiates. And he was compelled to write this book after a conversation he had with one of his yoga teachers. As their name suggests, the authors were three initiates of Hermetic philosophy. Now, historically speaking, Hermetic teachings were passed down orally, but the three initiates decided to write down core principles on the philosophy in order to help it reach a wider audience. And really, at the turn of the 20th century is where we have these amazing new thought leaders and new thought authors that some of their principles and teachings have only actually come out in the last 5 to 10 years and made repopular again, because our society is needing something more. We need to be a lot more grounded, and some of their teachings are just so magical that they will open up your heart to amazing things in your life. Now, one reason that the principles in this book were never crystallized into a formless religious creed is because Hermes and his followers feared that doing so would dilute their teachings. Now, history shows the wisdom of this very choice. Religions have evolved. I mean, think about it. The Gnostics of the early Christianity would definitely not recognize Christianity today. And occult religions in India and Persia have degenerated over time, as did the early mystic teachings in Greece and Rome. And when we think about it, religion is a man-made concept. When we tap into your understanding of what God is, it really has nothing to do with religion. And some of these principles in the Kybalion are going to help you bridge that understanding. Now, these basic doctrines deal with the mastery of mental forces. So I'm here to tell you that when you learn to apply the universal laws, you will possess the key to performing mental transmutation. And this empowers you to adjust your vibrational state from one to another. Now, essentially, by studying the laws in the Kybalion, you can learn how to change your reality by changing your mind. It's as simple and beautiful and magnificent as that. Now, one of the tenets in the Kybalion is that we live in a mental universe. All is mind. Therefore, knowing how to come into a vibrational synchronicity with this vast universal infinite intelligence is paramount. And this is the key to taking control of your life and living the life that you truly desire. Or, to put it another way, when you can rise to a higher plane, the tools of mental creation and manifestation will allow you to live a life greater than you can imagine. Now, I want to tell you a fact. When a baby is born, it has literally no understanding that it is separate from its mother. It literally thinks that it is its mother. And that is why some babies struggle in the arms of even their fathers or aunts and uncles for too long, because they are so familiar with the mother, with the heartbeat, with her rhythm, with her smell and her essence, that when they start to identify themselves as being separate, it becomes this whole new world for them, and they need to then have this create this new understanding. And how they do that is through definition. They need to start defining things and defining the people around them. It starts with the people in their family, and then they start to extend that to other things around them, like birds and dogs and maybe even rabbits in their life. So when you start to understand that a baby literally thinks it is its mother, there is this core underlying understanding that we are all connected. However, when we realize that there's this disconnection, but that disconnection is only a perception because of our physical 3D reality, everything comes down to when we realize we are all connected, then it changes how you see the world. Because if we are all connected, then why are we being cruel to one another or not showing love? I just want you to think about that for a moment. Now, the 7 seed truths contained in the Kybalion explain what the Hermeticists describe as the art of mental transmutation. As I said before, this may sound like magic, but the Hermetic teachings in the Kybalion are actually scientific. Most people don't realize that a set of universal laws apply to all created things that exist. And this is what the Hermetic philosophy is, an explanation of the universal fundamental principles that determine how reality works. By adopting and mastering these Kybalion principles, you can tap into the divine power of the universe. Now, I'm going to point out something. Once you start understanding and then living by these 7 principles, your world has to change. It cannot remain the same. So if you're still listening to this podcast, I want you to come back and tell me, what sort of things have you been able to shift in your life? Because I can guarantee you, you will see results and you will see them fast. Now, the Kybalion is one of the more out there books that you'll ever come across. And it's so arcane that one of the first concepts introduced to you when you begin to read it is the idea that the book has come to your attention by design. So the fact that you're even listening to this podcast is basically this higher understanding that your soul, your consciousness, your person is ready to receive the wisdom. And I'm going to touch on the wisdom for a moment. For the last 3 months, I have personally had so many encounters with owls. I mean, I cannot even tell you how many times owls have come to me. And owls, as we know, symbolize wisdom. I see them in emails all the time popping up, whether it be an image or the word. I see them in messages. I see them in street signs. I see them in number plates. And for my birthday this year, my husband took me to an owl encounter. I mean, it doesn't get more real than that. I have been marking some tertiary essays, and believe it or not, 3 owls turned up in 3 different assignments, and I just couldn't believe it. And so I really feel like the owl has been sending me a message about the wisdom and tapping into my intuition. And this podcast, the creation of this podcast, is actually a physical manifestation of these symbols that I've been receiving from the owl. So I want to thank the owls for sending me these signs and symbols, because these synchronicities have really lit my heart up. And I thank you for listening to this and even being here. So back to the Kybalion, it's these arcane teachings in a strict sense, is that they are mysterious and they are known by few, but it's time that we get these principles out into the world. So what I will do is I will lay out these 7 principles as well as the true meaning of the Kybalion in this episode. And in the next episode, I will apply or help you understand how to apply these principles into your everyday life. Now, by mastering your thoughts, which exist on a higher plane, you can affect matter on the physical plane. And now that may sound like a pretty strange concept, but it is one that has become increasingly accepted. Now, you may have a vague or a thorough understanding of the law of attraction, and that's what this is. This is where it stems from, basically. Now, there are some amazing celebrities, and if you look into their stories, you will see how they've been able to master this concept. Celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, Wayne Dyer, Will Smith, Jim Carrey, Tony Robbins, and Denzel Washington, to name a few. The list goes on, and the Hermetic tradition is finally seeing a revival. Now, the 7 principles go something like this. The all is mind, and that the universe is mental. As above, so below. As below, so above. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. The 4th principle is that everything is dual. Everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree, and extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes can be reconciled. The next one is that everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swings, manifests in everything. And the measure of that swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. And the rhythm compensates. The second last principle is that everything has cause and effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything is happening according to law, and these are universal laws. Chance is but a name for law, not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. And the last principle is that gender is everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles, and the gender manifests on all planes. So these 7 principles in the Kybalion can be symbolized by the movie The Matrix. Now, I'm sure you remember it, and it has had a lot of traction in the last 2 years, especially with the decoding and understanding the symbolism in The Matrix. Now, in The Matrix, it presented the idea of a code that controls the appearance of everything. And what we perceive as reality is instead a fabric of the digital domain. Now, in the movie, the protagonist Neo was presented with the opportunity to swallow the red pill or the blue pill. Which pill have you taken? In Hermetic philosophy, it's sort of like taking the red pill. With the Kybalion, the 3 initiates are shedding light on the way the universe functions behind the curtain. Now, the first principle is the principle of mentalism. This is the big one. And getting this is the key to understanding the Kybalion's meaning. Before you can employ any of the principles of the Kybalion, the starting point is to take it on faith that the underlying reality of the universe is mental. In other words, we are all literally living in a mental construct similar to the fabric of the Matrix. And here is the premise. If the universe is mental in its nature, then learning the art of mental transmutation gives you the ability to influence your reality. Now, guys, I am wholeheartedly telling you that I have been able to apply these principles and not only see change in my life, but control it. Now, one example I will give you is anytime one of our bunnies gets sick, I actually come to the conclusion that it is my thoughts that have led them to become sick. And when I come to realize this, is I actually say to myself, if my thoughts have been able to manifest through their sickness, then my thoughts can literally manifest their wellness and their health. And it works. It works. It works. I don't spend time dwelling. I don't spend my time and energy exerting, outgoing, ringing the vet up when they happen to be in there, or overnight visits, or whatever it may be. I literally spend my time and my energy, and I influence my thoughts, and therefore they are able to bounce back into recovery. And I will talk more about this in future episodes, but I just want to assure you that these principles work in our everyday life. Now, quantum physics actually teaches us that our entire universe is a product of both our conscious and our subconscious mind. So our thoughts and our emotions. Now, the mental manifestation is a real and powerful way to change our life. And in the next episode, I will be giving you some practical tips for how to apply this. The second principle is the principle of correspondence. Almost everyone is familiar with the belief that the life we create is a reflection of the image we hold in our mind, within and without relatability. Now, consequently, what may be invisible can be deduced by observing the visible. Or to put it another way, we can get a sense of what will happen in your life, so the invisible, because it hasn't happened yet, by paying attention to your thoughts, which are the visible. Your dominating thoughts are the ones that you give energy to, and they are the ones that will manifest in your life. Your thoughts mirror your reality. And this is the essential takeaway of the law of correspondence. Now, I'm a people person. I've worked with people my whole life. I'm a teacher, so I've been able to observe many teenagers and young adults. And I can assure you that it is those students who are the bullies, because bullying is a big topic with young people. It is those students, if I were to put up a mirror, it is those students who are basically, they feel the worst about themselves. Okay. Now, these bullies as teenagers become negative, vindictive, and just pessimistic adults. And unless you are able to face your shadow and look yourself in the mirror and truly love yourself, that is going to be reflected in how you treat other people. It's just a fact. And if you have a certain belief about other people, then it's a story that you are telling yourself. And it's those thoughts that basically manifest into your everyday life. And I will speak again more about this in the next episode. Now, the third principle is the principle of vibration. And a common example of vibration and frequency is the tuning fork. So when you hit it with a hammer and get it vibrating, it will cause other tuning forks in the vicinity to begin to vibrate at the same time, at the same frequency. And this can be also, another example would be the radio frequency. So if I am listening to 106.5 and there's a song on there and I tell you to hop on and listen to the song, it is only possible for you to listen to the song with your radio dial also on 106.5. Okay, so in Hermetic philosophy, the same thing happens with the vibrations that are caused by our ideas. So our thoughts determine what we attract into our lives. Now, by resonating positive emotions like joy, love, gratitude, and happiness, you will naturally attract corresponding vibrations from others. Most of us grasp this on an intuitive level, and we've all had days where we've been upset or frustrated, and everyone we meet just seems to make it worse. Now, Hermetic philosophy teaches us that this isn't just a coincidence. Instead, when we resonate, for instance, joy, we actually attract people into our lives who bring us joy. Now, this is why the top value I have in my life is gratitude, because when you are grateful for the things that you have and even the things that you don't have, by law, universal law, more things of that you are grateful for will be attracted to you. The next principle, the fourth principle, is the principle of polarity. And the Kybalion states that what we think of as opposites are really just differences in degree. So hot and cold aren't categorically different, they're just changes in degree. The more heat a room has, the less likely we are to say that it's cold, and vice versa. So, and up and down are also not categorically different. The more up you are, the less down you are. The same is true of wealth and poverty. Wealth and poverty aren't different categories of being. However, we identify ourselves and pigeonhole ourselves into either wealthy or poverty. We need to stop doing this. Instead, it can be helpful to think of a sliding scale with poverty at the low end and wealth at the top. That's really empowering because it means that when we're trying to move from poverty to wealth, we don't have to escape one category of being and jump ship to a totally different one. Instead, you just need to focus on moving up the sliding scale towards wealth and appreciate even small gains along the way. Even extreme opposites are categorically the same. Now, it is said that during COVID, there was a huge financial loss to many small businesses, business owners, and families. However, when we apply this to the sliding scale, and there are reports that you can look this up, a lot of well, the statistics are that 3.7 billion was lost by the everyday layman. However, when we look at the wealthiest people in the world, their wealth increased by $3.9 billion. Okay, so when we have financial crashes, the money doesn't go, the money just slides from one end to the other. And that's how the law of correspondence, or the principle of polarity, I should say, sorry, is what it is trying to teach us. The fifth principle is the principle of rhythm. So some days you'll feel like nothing can stop you, but the next day you might not want to even get out of bed. So what happened? It's the principle of rhythm, and it's the pendulum swing. Life isn't constant. It's always changing and moving up and down. And understanding this is very powerful because it gives you a key insight into the future. No matter where you are, whether it's good or bad, that things will change. I mean, isn't that the only constant thing in life? That change is inevitable. You can even take it one step further. So if you're the same person you've always been, then you can expect change roughly in line with what's happened in your past. If you've become someone new or different, then you can look at yourself and make some rough predictions about how the principle of rhythm will change your life based on who you are now. Now, this principle applies to everyone, and like all the other Hermetic principles, once you know what to look for, you can start to see it everywhere. In all of life, there is the yin and yang, the ebb and flow. A key in the Kybalion principle is that it's possible to use the laws together in order to come into control of your life. You only need to know how. And I'm going to teach you, so stay with me. Now, I remember leading up to our wedding, or even after our wedding, and even moving into our beautiful home this year, I've had a big year. I just remember at some point feeling a little bit guilty for feeling so happy or being able to manifest all these amazing things when there are people around me who are sick and losing their jobs and experiencing heartache, whatever it may be. And I just remember telling myself, no, this is my season. This is my up season. And I'm going to embrace every damn second of it. So I'm going to encourage you to do the same, because these ebbs and flows of life are a beautiful way to experience life. The second last principle is the principle of cause and effect. And according to the three initiates, a very large part of getting what you want in life is knowing that nothing ever happens by accident. Now, if you've hung out with me for more than 3 minutes, you will know that I don't believe in accidents. I don't believe in coincidences. Everything is coming to you with a divine timing, as they say. And everything is influenced by these laws laid out in the Kybalion. By understanding them and learning how to apply them, you can cause the effects you desire via an act of mental creation that can cause your desired manifestations. Instead of feeling like a pawn in the game of life, the key meaning of the Kybalion is that you can become a player and influence the outcome of the contest. I get really bothered by people becoming victims of their circumstances. And, it's always me, and just that negative spiral, and it's very hard to get off that hamster wheel. I can't stand it anymore. I see it in people around me, and to be honest with you, I stay away from these people. And I see it online all the time, and these are the accounts that I don't follow anymore because I don't want anything to do with that. I'm operating at a different level now, because this actually works, and it has such a powerful influence in your life. When you are experiencing something negative in your life, you have the power. The power is not outside of you. You should never be relying on a doctor, on a lawyer, on things outside of you, other people, or chance, or whatever it may be, to help lift you or get you out of this. You always have the answer. Now, it is easier said than done, and it does take some practice. But I can assure you, the moment that you come into your power and you accept that, yes, you can change this, and it starts with your thoughts, everything around you changes. Sometimes you will experience big shifts. Sometimes it's the small ones, but it is those small ones that will get you out of it. I mean, if we were to look at COVID as the example, there are some people who, unfortunately, when we look around, more and more people are suicidal, depressed, broke, relationship breakdowns. There were more relationship breakdowns during COVID than any other time in history. The power is within you. You have the power to change that. And it is through understanding and applying the Kybalion teachings that you can achieve this. The very last principle of the Kybalion is the principle of gender. And this universal principle is another facet of duality. Every one of us has both masculine energy as well as feminine energy. And there is a masculine principle and a feminine principle to all things. Now, it applies to everything on all planes of existence, regardless how large or small they are. At the subatomic level, protons have a positive charge and electrons have a negative charge. The charge on the proton and electron are exactly the same size but opposite. The negative polarity represents the feminine and the positive charge corresponds to the masculine. Now, what does the law of gender mean for life? So the masculine energy, now I'm going to emphasize here, it's not exclusive to men in the same way that feminine energy is not exclusive to women. So the masculine energy is goal orientated and action focused. It's a very yang energy and very outwards. It's about moving towards your goal every day. On the other hand, the feminine energy is about taking a step back, reflecting, reevaluating, and receiving. Feminine energy pushes you to look at the big picture and course correct so that you can take more effective action instead of just keeping your head down and continuing on the same course. The key to success is to make these two energies work together by knowing when to use each one. When is the right time to charge towards your goal, and when is the best time to step back and course correct? And this is one of the reasons why I love working with moon cycles. I actually live and manifest by the moon because of these very cycles that exist. The moon has a very feminine energy, whereas the sun is a very masculine energy. And when you learn how to work with these cycles and principles in life and apply them in your everyday, you can literally achieve amazing things. Now, to summarize the Kybalion's meaning, Hermetic philosophy is very deep and complex. And if you're looking for a quick analysis of the Kybalion's meanings, I hope you had a better understanding through listening to today's podcast. So reality is a mental construct, and by changing your thoughts and patterns, you can literally change your reality and manifest what you desire. It is essentially alchemy of the mental kind. You are turning ideas into physical manifestations. And it's a universal law. It is always working, whether you want it to or not. And one thing I want to emphasize is almost like astrology and other systems in place, whether you work with them or not, whether you believe in them or not, these are applicable in your life. They are universal laws. And so wouldn't you rather be tuned in, tapped on, and listening to them and applying them in your life? I mean, I have seen the results. So the 7 Hermetic principles should guide our understanding of the universe. And each chapter of the book is devoted to explaining and illustrating one of the principles. As I said before, these principles can be applied as universal laws or doctrines. And it can seem on the first read, if you do happen to pick it up, that the Kybalion is based on fantasy and has little relevance for everyday scenarios or contemporary people. However, once you take the time to interpret and consider the core meaning of each principle, it becomes apparent that they have a broad and powerful applicability. In my next episode, I'm going to be teaching you how to apply these principles in your everyday life. And if you are prepared, you will be seeing changes. It would be amazing for you to let me know what you thought of this episode. Did I open up your insight? Were you able to relate to any of these in particular scenarios or circumstances in your life? I would love to hear back from you, and I really want to thank you for listening in. Love from Tash.